They claim they're just using forest residues, but actually a great deal of what the McNeil facility and lots of biomass facilities burn is whole trees. And as you can see by this pile that's stacked right outside of the facility, these are trees.
It turns out that the biggest source of green energy in Vermont is something called biomass, burning trees to create electricity.
This is definitely not the way, and that the first step is actually looking at our lifestyles and how we can reduce our energy consumption. This is all the ash that has varying levels of toxic metals, a great deal of radiation, as these trees have been absorbed. Oops,
You're in unforbidden territory here.
Are we?
I asked both of you to come up to our office, okay?
Is that something you're interested in doing?
It's not an interest. You got 5 seconds or I'm calling 911.
Okay.
You got 2 individuals here. Police will be down here in about 2 minutes.
But you asked us to leave and we're doing so, so
I'm
we're
not
not
asking you to
trespassing.
leave. I'm asking you to come up to the office.
Okay, thanks for the offer. Maybe next time. You got everything here. So you have the #1 polluter in the state that people think emits magical fairy dust from the smokestack. The reality is what you have is a facility that burns 400,000 green tons a year of trees. This facility burns 30 cords of wood per hour.
That's a hell of a lot of wood.
And on top of that, it actually burns natural gas as well.
And to think you would have to have 10 of these to replace one average coal-fired power plant. It's just not going to work.
It's just nuts. It takes a great deal of fossil fuels to cut down all of these trees, to truck them in, to use the big machinery to dump the wood chips everywhere. So the idea that somehow this is not anything to do with fossil fuels just doesn't even make any sense. It couldn't happen without fossil fuels, in fact.
How did the environmental groups get pulled into this?
Obviously, the main factor is delusion. A lot of these environmental groups have been saying that all we have to do is, for instance, switch our fossil fuel economy over to a few solar panels and windmills, and we can continue living life, as normal. Some of the environmental groups have been for years touting facilities like this, saying that, #1, it's carbon neutral, that this will actually help us fend off climate change because there are no CO2 emissions. It actually emits over 400,000 tons per year of carbon dioxide. Oh, but once we cut them, they'll grow back. They'll grow back over a period of decades to centuries. But if we cut every tree in the United States, it would be able to power the country for a year, and then what happens when, the streets are gone?
I discovered biomass plants were not even always biomass plants.
This is actually a solid waste incinerator that's posing as a biomass plant. The impact on this community is severe. The plant is right next to its Head Start school for preschool kids. There is Green Hill Manor, and that's an assisted living senior residence. And there's also a Catholic elementary school right next door.
How do you know they're polluting? Can you see it
We
ever?
can see it. The snow at the elementary school and at the preschool is covered with black, some kind of black soot. We just had it analyzed and it came back as mostly tire chips. They have to add tire-derived fuel to raise the temperature of the fire because anybody who's tried to burn green wood or wet wood knows that it doesn't burn very well.
But this biomass plant had yet another surprise.
They admit that they burn 20.1 tons per hour of creosote-treated railroad ties. Besides that, they are allowed to burn 500 pounds per hour of PCP-treated railroad ties. These are shipped in from Canada. It's not green, it's not renewable, it's not carbon neutral, it's not anything that they claim to be. Yet, they got $11.5 million grant because it was classified as renewable. The plant owner told us that they were having trouble getting enough wood chips. And he even asked us if we had any scrap wood where we lived, would we call the plant to let them know so they could come up and pick it up?
We're not talking about some old industrial site. We're next to one of the most beautiful places in the world.
We are next to Lake Superior. This is Honua Bay. This is actually Lance Bay. It's part of Honua Bay. It's Lake Superior, our lake. So it's a very sacred place to many people.
And now it's time for a nature break, enjoying our sustainably managed Michigan forests.
If you walk through here and you look, there's virtually nothing growing. A little bit of grass occasionally.
And it seemed that biomass plants indeed were suddenly everywhere, like this one in Cadillac, Michigan. In Detroit, an incinerator that burned garbage was considered green.
The Detroit incinerator is known to emit horrible smells and pollutants that neighbors say make them feel sick and put their health at risk.
It's a stink. It's a horrendous stink.
A proposed biofuel plant for the Upper Peninsula of Michigan would consume trees from tens of thousands of square miles.
In order to create 40 million gallons of ethanol, they were going to have to use up over 1 million tons of green wood. We pointed out that they were going to be using more natural gas than they were going to be creating ethanol to displace the natural gas. If you continue to do this, you're going to be fertilizing the forest.
Fertilizing the forest with fossil fuels.
Fossil fuel-based, right, fertilizers.
Made from natural gas.
Yeah.
This year, Michigan voters have a choice. Keep burning dirty coal and oil, or move Michigan to clean, renewable energy like wind and solar. Vote yes on Proposal 3.
Surprisingly, Proposal 3, also known as 25 by 25, was the brainchild of an organization that was 100% biofuels and biomass.
Allowing America's farms, ranches, and forest lands to be active participants in contributing to America's energy future.
These are the biomass and biofuel plants across the U.S. How did this happen? And it wasn't just the USA, it was all around the world. Wood chips, which is just a euphemism for trees, are being exported to Europe from America, British Columbia, Brazil, and Indonesia, wherever they can get them from. Biomass, especially when you add in biofuels, is by far the largest portion of green energy around the world, even in Germany, source of the solar miracle. But maybe I was missing something. Maybe I had it all wrong. I decided to ask people protesting fossil fuels how they felt about biomass and biofuels as green energy.
Would you say we don't need to do biofuels, food, and forest for energy?
No, definitely not. Of course not. Of course not.
Burning biomass, any kind of combustion is something we just need to move away from.
The more trees we have, the better.
A lot of that didn't grow overnight. If we cut it down, we don't know the impact of that.
You're here as an oak tree, fight a chainsaw, that wouldn't be saving the planet.
No, it's a painful way to go. I can tell you that right now.
It'd take you a while to regrow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It wouldn't be me, it would be like an offspring, you know?
With so many people doing it on such a massive scale, all of a sudden at once, like, that's pretty serious.
No, I think we should not be burning trees.
No. Why would we cut down trees? We shouldn't replace one terrible way of getting energy with another terrible way of getting energy.